The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening all, welcome to tonight's Young Investors Club webinar. My name's Jake and I'm the YIC President. So tonight it's going to be quite a brief, quick webinar. It's one I did recently at our national conference, which was actually on a cruise ship, which was something different. Very enjoyable. We're looking at doing it again next year, so it'd be great if we could have a few of you on board. But yeah, quick presentation I did. I was sort of aimed at mum and dad, I guess, a little bit more and trying to educate them about helping their kids into property and getting into good savings habits early. But I had a lot of feedback saying, that'd be great to share with you guys. So yeah, I've called it 3 by 30, and what we're going to have a look at is, acquiring 3 properties, as the title says, by the time you're 30, and how we go about doing that. So it really is a presentation that's sort of evolved. I was just playing with a few numbers and doing a few bits and pieces, and I didn't follow this to a T. I guess it wasn't how I got to where I got to, but I look back and I definitely had some good savings habits that were instilled on me at a young age, and that really is the key there. So you can see I've put a couple of notes there. The key really is to starting young and getting those good savings early, and those habits early. So this is going to look at how we acquire 3 properties, or how you could go about acquiring 3 properties by the time you're 30. And you can see there the portfolio value works out to be 1.3, probably a little bit more than that. I haven't really allowed for any growth in those properties. That's purely just the purchasing price, and all at just $7 a day. So let's have a look at how you go about doing this. So let's look at our first purchase. 22 years of age. That is quite young, which is fantastic. I've helped a number of members start even earlier than this. Once you hit 18, banks will start looking at you, and you can get a loan as a late teenager. So 22 is certainly not out of the question at all. I've tried to be quite conservative. I always try and be pretty conservative with these numbers. So not to overpromise anything, but very achievable, very achievable. So let's look at this particular person, 22, on a 55k income. Okay, so by no means a massive income earner, but potentially, I don't know what field they're in, but yeah, many of the young people I see at this stage, that tends to be what they're earning, 55, 60k. Now look at a purchase price of $350,000. So again, the banks are willing to lend this sort of amount. It's a nice entry price point into the market, depending on what market you're in, obviously. Trying to buy something for $350,000 in inner Sydney, probably not achievable. But again, these are some broad numbers we're looking at, and that's what I'll sort of base this situation on. The 5% required. This is something you would have heard from me in past presentations and webinars. The key number there, the 5%, is generally what the lenders or the banks will want to see as genuine savings based upon the purchase price to give you a loan for that property. So in this example of a price of $350,000, 5% of that $17.5 grand. So whether that be a gift from your parents or relatives or savings, so we're looking at genuine savings here, and this is, we're trying to do this on our own here. So that's sort of the example I've looked at. So $17.5 grand is what we need to come up with for the banks to be happy with this. Okay, so how do we get to $17.5 grand? Well, you can see there, if we started saving since the age of 18, $84 a week. That's a fair amount of money. It's a lot less than if we started at, say, 21, and I think that's where starting early is the key. If we start a little bit later, trying to save up $7.5 grand in a year or two, quite difficult, especially on an income of $55,000. The quote I always remember, though, is time and property prices wait for no one. So if we're leaving it till later on to try and accumulate these savings quicker, it'll take us a little bit longer, and within that time frame, prices have got more expensive. Instead of $17.5 grand, we might now need 25. So the goalposts keep moving, and it can be quite hard to get there. So the key really is to start young. So that's at 18. If we go back to the age of 15, Okay, it works out to be, and you can see the dramatic drop there by just starting a few years earlier. That takes us down to $7 a day. So as I said earlier, I did some things when I was younger. I didn't have the foresight to know I was going to use it for property or whatever it might have been. But I, did a few odd jobs and things like that and saved up money similar to this amount here. So by looking at starting when you're 15, it's just $7 a day. It's a lot more achievable, isn't it? So there it is. So property one at the age of 22. So purchase price, as we discussed, was $350,000. Now again, I've covered these things before about out-of-pocket expense. So we did need $17,500 for the banks to be happy with the 5% savings. But by the time we've utilised first homeowners grants, stamp duty concessions, and potentially buying it as an owner-occupier loan, thus getting a higher loan-to-value ratio, or LVR as we call it. By doing that, our total out-of-pocket or funds to complete is only $5,000. Okay, so instead of the $17,500 which we needed, we've only used $5,000 of that, so we've now got $12,500 left over. Again, this sort of highlights the importance of buying a property where you can get a strong lender or a higher loan-to-value ratio on the property, therefore not chewing up all of your cash. All right, so that was the first property covered. Let's now look at the second one. So the second property at age 25. So our income has gone up. I know wages growth is a bit of a contentious issue and hasn't been too forthright there with many businesses and whatnot within Australia. But at that age, we should be, maybe upskilling and moving up the ladder, I guess, and earning a higher income than we were at a younger age. So the income there has gone up to $75,000. And the prices move up accordingly, so prices do go up, and we should look at trying to purchase more expensive properties if we can, because cheap now is cheap later. Whereas if we're looking at a property doubling in value, whatever time frame that may be, 400 doubled is more than 200, isn't it? So. There's things you'll go through with your mentor about property selection, but I'm digressing there. So let's look at $400,000. So again, that magic 5% required number, $20,000. Okay, so the last one was 17.5. We're now up to 20,000. So how did we come up with that figure? Well, remember we only actually used $5,000 of that first purchase. So providing we've been able to make our mortgage repayments, it may now be an investment property, so you've got the tax deductions plus the rental income coming in. You'll be chipping out of your own pocket. But that's hopefully we've been able to do that and then keep that $12,500 savings. We might have even had that in an offset account, reducing down the interest payable on that loan. So that's hopefully we've been able to hold on to that $12,500. So we've got that left over, which means we only needed another $7,500 over those 3 years. So you break that down, $7 a day. So again, like I said, we need to be able to hold on to that first property, and hopefully we're keeping this money aside for our next purchase and using our income and like I said, the tax man and the tenant, if it is now an investment, to be able to hold on to that property, and therefore we've still got that $12,500 left over. We're only needing $7 a day then for the next 3 years. So I've now got 2 properties by the age of 25, worth $750,000. That's not assuming any growth. That's pretty good, isn't it? So by the age of 25, you can already have a portfolio of $750,000. Now let's look at the third property. Okay, so we're now 30. Great story if you ever get to see. So his name's Michael Ensor, so from New South Wales, one of our YIC ambassadors over there. Here's a great story about, so he got to his 3 properties by 30, and a big driver for him was proving one of his high school teachers wrong. I can't remember the exact story, but she wasn't too complimentary of him, and said he'd never be able to achieve things he wanted in life, and and that really resided with him. So a big driving force behind his quest for properties was to prove her wrong. So yeah, great story if you ever get to see Michael at one of our live events. Yeah, so he achieved his 3 properties by 30, still growing his portfolio. He's got kids, the whole works, so yeah, definitely achievable. So again there, so our income has gone up, and this is what we should be striving to do anyway as part of being in the workforce and you know, forever upskilling and getting better in our profession. So the income has gone up there, and again the price has gone up to 500 grand. We sort of talk about buying median price properties within the area, and the area for capital growth needs to be, you know, tick all the boxes as far as population movement, infrastructure, jobs, employment, close to hospitals, schools, all that sort of stuff. So 500k is a nice median purchase price. And again, we need that 5%, the magical 5%. So in this case, the price has gone up. 5% has gone up, so we're now at 25 grand. So how did we come up with 25 grand? Okay, so again, I haven't been outlandish with any of these figures, but I've assumed here that property 1, which we purchased for 350, is now worth 380. Now that's only 30k in 8 years. That's if you ask me, that's probably underperformed, and we'd like to be buying a property that's done better. But for the sake of this exercise and being very conservative, let's just say it's gone up 30 grand. So with this particular purchase, we're paying principal and interest. Kevin Young, the founder of the club, is not a massive fan of that. He prefers interest only, but personally, especially for younger people, I like the idea of principal and interest. You can get a lot better interest rate. It instills good savings. It's sort of like forced savings, and you've created your own equity here in the property. And, you know, it really sets you up well, if you ask me. So I quite like principal and interest, particularly for the younger people and buying their first property or two. So you can see there, I hope you can see these numbers. It might be a little unclear, but that one up the top there, 340,000. So the purchase price was 350. We were able to get a higher LVR. And you can see over time here, that's the length of the loan. So 30 years is a standard loan term. And you can see how that the amount owing has dropped over time. So you can see here I've used an interest rate of 5%. Again, you should be getting better than that, but just for this exercise. So you can see here the years remaining as they go down, the loan amount has gone down as well. Okay, so within those 8 years, we've paid off, you know, almost 50 grand worth of the mortgage there. What we're going to talk about is how do we get that 25 grand. So let's look at refinancing the property, and that's where that magical equity word comes from. So by paying principal and interest, I guess you've created your own equity, plus the property has gone up in value a little bit. So equity is just the difference between the value of the property and I guess the debt you've got associated with that property. So at refinancing 80 now, the reason I've done 80% is to avoid lender's mortgage insurance. Now, you've heard me talk before, I'm a big fan of lender's mortgage insurance. Helps you get into the market sooner. Remember that quote I said before, time when property prices wait for no one. But I thought I'd be very conservative with this number, use 80%. So the way I get that 13 grand is we're working on the purchase price now being, or the value, sorry, being 380,000. So 80% of the value of that minus the loan amount down there of 291,000 gives us roughly 13k worth of equity to play with. Excuse me. Okay, so that means there's a remainder of 12 grand that we need to come up with and break that down over a 5-year period. $7 a day, that's all it is. So can you see the sort of trend here that's happening? So by, you know, doing some smart things starting early, these aren't outlandish numbers at all. And like I said, we've only refinanced that at 80%. If we were to then take that up to 90%, that might allow us a little bit more. But we're just keeping it nice and simple for you all out there to see how easily achievable it is. So what does that all equal? Well, so we're 30 years old with 3 properties, the value of 1.3 million. Now, that's not really assuming any capital growth. So if those properties have been lucky enough to, you think what's happened to the Sydney, Melbourne markets recently, we're now starting to see a little bit of that here in the Gold Coast and the Sunny Coast to a lesser extent. So, you think of if those property prices have performed like they have, how good your portfolio would be looking. But if not, you've still got a portfolio there worth almost $1.5 million, and from $7 a day from the age of 15. So you can really see the key is starting young, getting a good savings habit, and you can see it's not ridiculous. We weren't on high incomes, just good solid incomes, good savings habits. We purchased the right property at the right time with the right loan structure. So it's very important to get all these things lined up in the correct order. And if I can give any marital advice, I mean, if you can find someone who's done the same thing as you have here, you've now got 6 properties by the age of 30. So not suggesting that's part of your grand plan at all, just a bit of a joke there. But yeah, you can see how achievable it actually is. And so many of us were older than 15 now. Obviously, I don't think anyone would be at that age watching it, but when you break it all down, you can see how easily achievable it is. So we can still instill these savings patterns where we're at now, and help us with our portfolio going forward. So look, if you had any questions, we won't do any just now, but if you type through your questions down the bottom right hand corner, you should have a little box there where you can type some in, and I'll get back to you within the next 24 hours. And I think I got a quick survey at the end. So if any of you want to discuss any of this on a one-on-one, you've all got your property mentors and your young investors ambassadors as well. But if you'd like to talk to me about any of this as well and have a look at your own situation, more than happy to. That's sort of what I'm here for, to help you guys. And I'd love to hear from you all. So please let me know. We can catch up on the phone or via email, and have a bit of a look at your stuff and see where you're at and see if we can help you as well. All right, well, thanks very much. It was, like I promised, it was a nice, short and sharp one tonight, but I hope you got a lot out of it, and you can see how easily it is done. And I look forward to seeing you at all at another Young Investors Club event soon. We're travelling back to New South Wales in a couple of months over in Perth, so we've got quite a few coming up over in Melbourne as well. So keep an eye out for all that sort of stuff. And we'll see you on another YIC webinar shortly. But I'll just leave it open just for a couple more minutes. If you've got a couple of questions, just type them through quickly. Otherwise, I look forward to talking to you guys again soon. Have a great night. Talk soon.